What do you think was the most effective way to build relationships with brokers when you started out doing larger multifamily deals?
A lot of investors, entrepreneurs in the beginning part of their career, they want to know how to get the momentum, how to get the deal flow. And so what I did was I created the deal flow from a blended approach. I mean, every way I could possibly do it. I mean, yeah, of course you want to meet people. Of course, you also want to know, you want them to know your track record and know how much of a candidate you are to buy this asset. So acquisitions and brokers, I'm looking to create some type of attitude or protocol or system to just get in front of as many as possible. Off-market deals, I'm all over the place.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Oaks Capital. Super excited for today's show. We've got a couple of great people on the line with us. We got Yusef Alexander, Denise Piazza, and Danielle Pachioli. So first of all, we're going to bring on our experienced guest, Yusef. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is fun. It's one of the highlights of my weeks is the podcast hours. So that said, why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I like to do the short version, especially since we're going to have a long discussion, and then we can kind of dive into whatever we need to dive into. But born and raised in Los Angeles, UCLA economics grad, done some smaller deals throughout my career in the mid to late 90s, and then 20 some odd years later, scaled to multifamily, went from Southern California to Arizona to the Midwest. And then most of my activity in the multifamily market was in the Southeast, the Carolinas. Georgia.
Nice. What are your favorite markets in that area?
In the Southeast, Georgia, Atlanta's a phenomenal market, but it's grown so much over the past decade where we've created a footprint that the other markets are what the surrounding markets are emerging as well.
Yeah. And I asked specifically, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Sorry, in the north as well. The North Atlanta corridor, so to speak, is a very, very hot area.
Yeah. One area we're high on is I-85 corridor, especially through South Carolina, like the upstate South Carolina area. We've got 6 properties, within a stone's throw of that I-85, through South Carolina. But we like those areas as well for many reasons. But so grew up in Los Angeles area, you said. Are you still in that area?
Well, yes, I had a home actually in Georgia. I recently sold it, but I have a home here in Los Angeles as well. This is where my kids go to school.
Yeah, nice. Nice to be close to the kids. So what got you into multifamily?
Well, I mean, early in my career, I started, like I said, in the 1 to 4 unit repositioning. And I decided that, a better way for me to scale the operation and also scale the investor syndication would be a multifamily project. And from then I kind of had to make the pivot from the smaller to the multifamily, and the career started from there and kept going.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who listen to the podcast are right in that pivot, and I think a lot of people have done exactly what you said you're doing, is where you're doing the 1 to 4, you're doing the smaller stuff. Light bulb goes on. It takes a UCLA economics degree to realize that scaling is what you need to do, but with a lot of people, the light bulb goes on and they try to transition to multifamily. What were the big challenges you had in that transition from the smaller stuff to the bigger stuff?
Well, I mean, you just got to learn a different skill set. Some of the skill sets are, transferable, added value, and I have some intentional things that I like to put in play when I take on a project. But since you have a scaled site, you have to execute a business plan on, with that in mind. So you have scaled marketing, leasing. You have a customer base that needs to be accommodated as well. The customer base, of course, is the property. Sometimes there's a personality with the campus, which is the property, and the community. It's a type of property where there's mostly families or mostly, young adults or whatever. So those are the things that need to be taken into consideration more so than if you have a single family dwelling and it's just that kind of standalone issue.
Yeah. You know, we found the same thing. I mean, there some things translate directly over. Some things are brand new when you're jumping into the multifamily space. Do us a favor and talk to us about, you know, one of the projects you've done. You know, pick a recent one, pick your favorite one, and give us an idea of the type of stuff that you do.
Let's see. Okay, well, there's a 104 unit building we did in the Atlanta area, and got in at a pretty good per door price, but didn't know if we wanted to just spend a lot of the resource of the business plan in the amenities, or we wanted to go in, interior, do a really kind of heavy turn on the vacant units. But what we found was, again, like we just spoke about, the personality of the asset was families. It was mostly families, and there are some older families. And sometimes you never know until you really get into a deal, which is purchasing it. And we found that amenities, the families, the population, they wanted amenities. So what we did was we put a kind of a business center there, and we upgraded all of the layouts, and we made sure the Wi-Fi, we brought another Wi-Fi line from the utility company in there, and just kind of had an updated family. We did a pedestrian kind of a parkway there. We did we brought back to life it wasn't like not of a play area, but it was kind of a little park path. We brought that back. So it was just more families, versus when we first came into the property, we were thinking young adults. They just the hipsters, you know what I mean? You do everything inside the house, the bike racks, the Amazon drop space, all the new stuff. So got in there, did 10 of the unit, or maybe 5 of the units the way we thought, and then we end up doing 30 of the units, the way that they should be done. And consequently, turned that property in about a year, and got out of it and sold it for profit. Nice.
And what caught your guys' attention? I mean, you said you started out with your business plan, got into 5, and realized you needed to make a pivot. What was the thing that caught your attention that made you realize that you needed to pivot slightly?
Well, you look at the rent roll and you try to do a rent roll audit to see where are the enhancements coming from. Or is it coming from renewed leases? Is it coming from new leases? And are those new leases, what do the demographics say? Do they say new families, young adults, singles, transitional, population? What do they say? So when you start kind of diving into those numbers of the marketing, then you say, okay, well, here's where, that $50 turns into $150 increase, because this is what the demand is, and the customer base is commanding.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a couple of tenant surveys when we purchased properties. When we've come in with a certain budget for renovations, and a couple of open-ended surveys. For the most part, they're giving us the answers that we expected. But every once in a while, you get something on there that 5 or 6 or 8 people respond to, and you're like, you know what? We can still do that. So I think a lot of times, paying attention to that really helps create community, and it helps, translate to your bottom line as well. So, so shifting gears a little bit, something I'd like to ask everybody, what is your big burning why? Yeah. Well,
I'm kind of going to continue on the what you just said as far as the community. There, you go into a place, and for me, this is not a turn and burn situation or a fix and flip situation. These are communities, and my intentional attitude is abundant exchange. So how can I create abundant exchange with a community? And that community needs to be served where the added value is in alignment with what's needed. Like, I put after school programs in places, and business centers like we just spoke about, and pedestrian parks, and just kind of brought an intentional community benefit to a place. And then in exchange, like you were saying, with some data collection and some surveys, the exchanges is the demand. The demand goes up, and which is the rental rates go up, and then the investment, after the business plan is executed, the investment shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, once they start realizing that, you get a lot of traction. It's creating the win-win scenarios between the ownership and the residents that really impacts the bottom line. I mean, and I think you said that, you hinted at this earlier, you're looking at, are we getting big bump renewals or from new tenants? But if you can show the tenants that you're building a community, a lot of them will renew at much higher rates because they can see what's going on. They can see that the property is getting better and there's more amenities there. And one question I've always had from a lot of people is, so you raise rents, what happens to the tenants there? Well, if you raise rents right and you're adding amenities, most of them stay and they're happy to. So I like how you put that, looking for that win-win scenario there. That said, what's next for you in your trajectory?
Well, I'm here in Southern California post-pandemic now, so I haven't been doing a lot of traveling, but I'm looking to, and I have some deals here in the Southern California area, but also I'm looking for a fit, Brian, and the fit has to be a capital partner fit, possibly, or the asset, the location has to be a fit where I enjoy, going, and I don't necessarily, it's not a vacation site, but it's a place where, I can kind of have a sort of a lifestyle. And just, from what I've done into, what I would like to do, which is continue to create abundant exchange in communities and also bring profit to the investor space. If those things fit, then I'm all over it. So that's what's next for me.
Nice. All right, we're going to shift gears one more time here, and we're going to bring Denise on first. So Denise, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Absolute pleasure. So please do me a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My background is I started my career in working with real estate about 20 years ago. I was at a CPA firm, and I had a lot of exposure to accounting and tax work for real estate businesses and clients who owned a substantial amount of real estate. At the time, it certainly intrigued me, but truthfully, I didn't have the capital to start investing. So after a few years there, I went to work for a few large Fortune 100 companies doing some accounting and finance work. Over the years, I made my way up those organizations and eventually landed in a senior management role in accounting and finance. But luckily for me, those companies that I worked for, they were growing very quickly. So over that time, I had the opportunity to work on several large acquisitions, internal projects, system implementations, joint ventures, other large transactions. So, and then about 10 years ago, my husband and I started investing in real estate. We've invested across multiple asset classes now, in both active and passive roles, in single family, multifamily. We've done, commercial retail space, triple net leases. So through those experience, we really just developed our passion for multifamily investing. We're both CPAs. And so we are big fans of the tax benefits associated with our investments. And a short time ago, I'd say that I decided to be more active in the multifamily space, and happy to report that Danielle and I now have a deal under contract as a co-GP on our first 408 unit Class B property. So been jumping right in.
Yeah. I remember talking a little bit about that earlier with you guys, and it sounds like a fantastic opportunity. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So Denise, same question that I ask everybody on the show. What's your big burning why?
Yeah, so my husband and I like to think that we've been fortunate in our hard work and the success of our careers. It allowed us to combine our passion for real estate investing with my goal of giving back to organizations I'd like to support. I love everything about real estate and always knew I wanted to create a business around it, but I wanted to do it in a way that I could be incredibly proud of what I accomplished, and not just financial success, but in supporting organizations with missions that I'm committed to. Their missions, most importantly, remind me and those around me to stay humble, motivated, and focused. And we're currently working with some organizations to donate a portion of our returns and to help promote awareness for these organizations on our website, draw attention to some of the charitable organizations that we work with, and encourage others to become aware of their missions and to support the organizations. And, ultimately, I'd love to be in a position once I have a little bit more time to, give back some of my time to them, to supporting them. And that's some things that I know a lot of us talk about with more time freedom. But until I'm there, I like to support them through financial commitments until we get to the point where we'd have more time to volunteer.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Definitely. Anytime anybody talks about, good causes and giving back, it brings a tear to my eye. Not really, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
The little warm fuzzy feelings in your
Right.
heart type stuff. But good for you for doing that and keeping those good causes in mind. Shifting gears, and we're going to talk to Danielle now. So Danielle, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So same questions for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll also talk about your big burning why.
Okay. So Denise is a hard act to follow, but I'll give it my best try.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very small town in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. And I went to Bloomsburg University. I originally thought I was going to be a teacher and then shifted gears and thought I would do public relations and got a taste of public relations, wasn't quite thrilled with it, and had been recruited into a sales role. And so by day, I am juggling a medical sales position.
Yeah.
And I love it. I absolutely love what I do. And I have no plans of walking away. It is one of those positions where, I feel proud to carry the products that I'm carrying, and they truly do benefit patients. And of course, that is hard to walk away. So, but during COVID, I think most of us, had time to reflect. And I started to think about different sources of income. And several years prior, I was approached in regards to multifamily. A friend had reached out to me, and it just timing wasn't right at the moment. And so I had passed on it. Fast forward to the middle of the pandemic, and Denise, who is one of the most driven individuals, females that I know. And so I always like to say she's going 200 miles an hour and I'm tailing her behind her, trying to keep up at 100 miles an hour. But she had reached out to me. And as I had mentioned, I was already familiar with multifamily investing. A friend had reached out previously and I had passed on the opportunity. Just timing wasn't right. And so when we started talking about it, it was almost like the stars were aligning. And I, am fortunately in a place where I have some additional time to be able to do this. And so the ball started rolling very, very quickly. And I mean, as she mentioned, we just, got our first deal under contract. So it's extremely exciting. I've been in sales for the last 20 years and, the last 12 specifically in medical. And it's, I think that there's some skill sets that can parlay, obviously, into this role. And so
I think you both have really good skill sets that translate, CPA, good with numbers, finances, and understand that side of the house. And sales, I think everybody, I never did a sales thing, but looking back in my life, I wish I would have been in sales for a while because you're selling yourself every time you talk to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, no, I'm excited. We're really excited to see what the future holds.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Danielle, what is your big burning why?
So it's funny, you and I have obviously spoken before, and I think I may have shared this with you. Being from a very small town in the middle of nowhere, blue collar family, I didn't really have much guidance as far as, just understanding investing and, those basic skill sets. And not that I ever want my children to be spoiled, but I had always had the hope of having my own business and teaching them that you can work for a huge global company and you can also invest and not just invest, but diversify your investments through real estate. And so my burning why is to show my children what just because of circumstances, I wasn't shown at a younger age. And The other piece, and Denise mentioned this, and I think this is where she and I truly align on our goals, is the giving back. There are several organizations and topics that are near and dear to our hearts. And so if we can make, a good living and give back, I think, as she mentioned, that's really important to both of us.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Well, awesome. Great. So here's my favorite part of each episode, where I say, Denise, Danielle, we got Yusef on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Oh, I'll go first. So thank you so much for sharing your background with us. We definitely appreciate it. It's no secret that the market is so hot right now. You mentioned Atlanta, and it sounds like, I want your opinion on secondary and tertiary markets. I think you started to get into it a little bit in regards to Atlanta, but I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what your thoughts are.
Well, as for in the multifamily space in different areas, and I'm speaking of the Southeast, because, I don't have any experience in the Northwest or the Northeast. I just have experience in West Coast and the Southeast. So the tertiary markets, I don't really touch, and it's just because it can be done, but it's just something that my team and the appetite for my investment crew is just we don't have the appetite for that. But the primary markets and the secondary markets are fine. The pandemic has shown us people, and one of my intentional ways to invest is give people dignified living, give people a place to live that they take pride in. And that goes across, I've done projects in you talking about tertiary market, I've done projects in blighted areas around the United States. And that same intentional, prideful living attitude bodes well there. And I've done luxury living, which I'm not a fan of. And I don't even want to get into that. But the prideful part of it, the taking pride in a living space, post-pandemic, is the market has shown that's the returns on that are and the intentional part of that is just a big part of it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thank you. If you could, it sounds obviously like you're very focused in that southeastern portion of the United States. Outside of Atlanta, what's your next favorite market?
Well, we talked earlier, and what am I going to do next? I'm looking in Texas, and I have some stuff in Southern California that I'm looking at. As a matter of fact, the deal came across my desk in Northern California. I'm in Napa, near Napa. Mm-hmm. So, the West Coast and the Southwest are on my radar. And yeah, I wanted to comment on something, because you struck a chord with me, Danielle, regarding teaching your kids financial literacy. And that's one of the things that I strongly champion: childhood literacy, including financial literacy. Now, financial literacy could be taught to adults in any population that wants to learn, but childhood literacy is a huge part of my public cause. And I'm on the board of a school, a charter school here in South Los Angeles. And childhood literacy coupled with financial literacy is something that is just so important. And thank God for moms and entrepreneurs like yourself that's starting at home, and and then it branches out from there.
So thank you.
Yeah, something about the financial literacy. Like a lot of people, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and nothing anything disrespectful about my father, but he's more of the poor dad mindset, and I always wanted to have, try to be the rich dad to my kids and teach them finances. Don't know how well I've done, but I've tried to at least be better teaching finances to kids than my dad was to me. But I think that'll put them on a road that I didn't have myself. So
couldn't agree more.
Right.
Okay, Yusef, I have a question. I believe you mentioned acquisitions just as part of the role you play in your partnership. What do you think was the most effective way to build relationships with brokers when you started out doing larger multifamily deals?
Well, that's one of the that's a good question, by the way, because a lot of investors, entrepreneurs in the beginning part of their career, they want to know how to get the momentum, how to get the deal flow. And what happened to me is I was in sales, and I also took the wholesale properties for the first 2-3 years of my career. I mean, just as a broke 22-year-old math teacher, ex-math teacher, I should say, I'm out there hustling and selling myself on borrowing money, selling myself on buying deals and selling deals to other investors as well. So what I did was I created the deal flow from, just a blended approach. I mean, every way I could possibly do it. I mean, yeah, of course you now in a more sophisticated, role, it's you want to meet people. Of course, you also want to know, you want them to know your track record and know how much of a, legitimate candidate you are to buy this asset. But again, I'm more of a, I come kind of from the old school. It's just, I'm out there talking, I'm making phone calls, I'm meeting people. I'm, very, very, very matter of fact about who I am and what I want to do. And that creates some, an attractive kind of energy to the calls that start to come into me versus the calls that I make in the prospects that I make. So I don't really have a formula. I was on a podcast earlier today, and the gentleman knew of some of the deals, and he was like, well, how did you do this? And I said, well, my attitude is, I understand there's a problem, but it's more of an opportunity. And if I can create a system or a protocol for that work in my business, in my company, then that becomes an opportunity for me to have a better approach at this from my competitors and for myself. So acquisitions and brokers, I'm looking to create some type of attitude or protocol or system to just get in front of as many as possible. Off-market deals, I'm all over the place. I mean, you can see right now, I'm a little bit, this is what I love to do, and I'm always doing it.
Yep. You're very transparent with your approach, and I'm sure there's a level of appreciation there. So thank you.
Yeah, a lot of what he said, him with me. I mean, getting out there. What got me initial traction with the brokers that brought us our first deal was I lived in DC at the time, getting in my car, driving 8 hours to the south and trying to meet with as many brokers as possible. And it was those face-to-face relationships that ended up getting us our first couple of deals. So get out there, get to the markets where you're doing things. And the thing that I'll add, and I mean, Yusef commented on it where he is now with experience, it's different. But if you don't have experience up front, align yourself with somebody who does have experience. And I think that's a pretty good recipe right there. So just basically keying in on a couple things Yusef said there, and I think great answer. All right.
I have one more question, if that's okay.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you could nail it down to just one piece of advice to give Denise and I. What has made you so successful?
I'm going to apologize in the beginning of this answer because I'm going to flip it back to you guys. You guys are a very talented crew, and you have some endowed gifts, of course, but you also have some gifts you've collected over your career, whether it be in the CEO of your homes or this, partner in a CPA firm. And those skills can translate to what you're doing now, which is buying multifamily assets. It's been many times where I've been in meetings and I've turned to whether it be a male or female or a young millennial and said, hey, how do I do this? Like because I don't have the skill set to figure out what the business center should need, or I don't have the skill set to figure out what the after school program, a little aspect of our leasing office, the back part of it we're going to use. And I'm asking the person that had kids before I had kids, and those skills translated into returns on my investment. So I apologize again, but the answer goes to the gifts and skills and experience that you guys have already gained. Those gains over the years will translate into your investment career. I mean, my encouragement is to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree. Hard work. I'll answer the same question. For me, it was, and the reason I asked about the big burning why on every episode is because that's what drove me. It's not easy, getting into this business. There's a substantial barrier to entry getting in. And, like Yusef said, I had a lot of skills that I had developed, and I was just leveraging my own skills. But I think the biggest thing that kept me trudging forward when the going got tough was that big burning why. And like I said, that's why I put it on every podcast episode, because I reviewed it every morning. Every single morning, I reviewed, this is why I'm doing it. Okay, this is what I want. This is the results I want to achieve. That's really what got me going forward. And being able to use the skills that I had at the time and the skills that I've developed since. So for me, it was keeping my eye on the prize. Here's my why. Here's why I'm doing it.
Right, one foot in front of the other, right?
Yeah, as you just like Brian said, and I was encouraging you to keep going. You're going to learn and develop, and and more things are going to come, to add to your investor experience. But moving forward, as you continue to move forward, like you said, you got somebody going 200 miles an hour and the other one going 100 miles an hour. You'll get there.
Awesome. Well, any other questions, ladies?
No, thank you so much.
So one final question for each of you as we wrap up the show, and Yusef, you get to go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Well, I'm on, the social media platforms, which I'm not that active. I'm learning LinkedIn and the professional ones. My website is, of course, but I take personal emails, and you can link that email in the show notes, but it's just my name at reap.capital.
Okay. And we'll have that information in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in reaching out to him, hit him up. Danielle, you're next. How can people learn more about you?
Well, you guys can visit our website, Mainline Capital Advisors. And there's the link to the investor portal is there as well.
Okay. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. And Denise, anything additional from you? Same website for you too, right?
Yes, it's www.mlcapitaladvisors.com. You can also shoot me an email at dpiazza, Piazza, at mainlinecapadvisors.com. And thank you again.
All right, sounds good. And we'll have that information in the show notes. So thank you so much to the three of you for being on the show. I think it was a great time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Take care, guys.
Take care. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you as well.
All right, sounds good. Well, we'll just wrap it up here then. Thank you to the three of you for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time, questions, and you said some very wise words of advice too. So thanks very much to all three of you.